Russell Quirk, you are one of the most outspoken estate agents in the UK. You very famously set up eMove, which unfortunately went to the wall about 12 months ago. And now you've resurrected Phoenix like and joined the Keller Williams team. Why?
Why? Did anybody really not see it coming that I would get back into estate agency? You know, I ran eMove for 10 years. I ran a traditional estate agency with Anthony, my cousin, between 1999 and 2009, so that's 20 years. It was the first job I had when I left school. My father was an estate agent. My grandfather was an estate agent, and he set up the original family business in the 1950s at about the same time John Bairstow was plying his trade in Brentwood and Essex, which, ironically, is opposite the office that we now have for Keller Williams in Essex. So look, it is, I know it's a cliche, but it's in the blood for sure. I love agency. The PR thing that I do, which is the majority of my time and something I love dearly, is kind of a byproduct of eMove. It just so happens that it's something that I and James and Alex, the propaganda team, are particularly good at because of our property expertise. But I think, look, I needed the dust to settle after eMove, I suppose, just to kind of take stock. But it wasn't very long before I started thinking, look, I want to get back into my industry. You know, I'm not an outsider. You know, I've been in the industry, as I say, for some time. So I talked to various interesting, well-known people that you would know, about what that re-entry might look like in the future. And you know, kind of having had the two extremes really of traditional agency, branch-based, and online, they are two extremes in my opinion, what might be an interesting way forward in terms of the future. Now, of course, I've talked about the future of estate agency many, many times since 2009-10, and in many respects I was wrong, in many respects I was right, I think, in terms of what estate agency looks like. One thing's for sure is that it's consumer-led. It's actually not led by the industry, it's consumer-led. So if you get the consumer bit right in terms of accessibility of the agent, service, which I know is a kind of, you know, cliched term, but if you get that right, I think everything else starts to follow. So understanding, I think, the service aspect, also understanding that the cheap fee aspect was definitely a mistake. We all thought that would gain huge market share, and of course, look, Mark Reddings, Adam Day, perhaps even Michael and Kenny Bruce will tell you that actually to a point that works, but it doesn't work past that point. So my reasoning now is, having spent all that time and money on trying to ply a sector with cheap fee that only has got to 5-6% market share, clearly the consumer is happy to pay a decent on completion contingency fee on success. Yeah, so I'm now back to where I was before I tested that, and
Yes.
I guess it was eMove, a test, an experiment. But the other things that I've definitely kind of realised is that estate agency can be centralised, so you don't have to have lots of branches. The Keller Williams approach is very much one where it's about the personal individual, the local knowledge of that particular individual, who, you know, has got experience of the local market, a standing in the local community. So that was kind of pretty much number one for me, that my realisation aligns with the Keller Williams philosophy, and of course it's something that Gary Keller has been advancing in the States since the 80s. So thinking about what this whole thing looks like, I kind of came across, I knew Ben Taylor, who's the CEO of Keller Williams UK, relatively well, met him a couple of times, spoken to him a few times, but it wasn't until I kind of met him and sat down and spoke to him properly that I really got to understand the Keller model.
He's a very inspirational guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he is absolutely passionate. I mean, absolutely passionate. And, you know, he and I very quickly realised that we were aligned in terms of, you know, what we think estate agency might start to look like. You know, on the basis of it being, you know, unbelievable service, accessibility, charging a decent fee for it, technology supporting you but not taking over, so it's tech empowering people, and also having the power of the Keller brand. Look, no disrespect to some of the other businesses that are doing kind of what Keller are doing now in terms of this kind of so-called hub approach. Keller Williams are the biggest estate agency brand in the world. 180,000 agents, 40 countries, 1,200 locations. They sell 4,300 properties a day, so it was just 1.2 million last year. Having that behind you as an individual, where you can go and value a house, list it, have that credibility, and then keep 70 to 90% of the fee. These guys that are sitting in branch offices now banking 400 grand a year, 600 grand a year, particularly here in London, and they're only earning 5 or 10% of that, because the rest is going to head office, the bosses, rent and rates. Well, that's completely disproportionate. Why should a good, hard-working individual agent not take the lion's share, given that he is spending most of his time, putting most of the effort in?
Yes.
He should be proportionally rewarded.
Interestingly, another person who expresses strong opinions is Simon Shinerock, the MD of the 15 branch choices and a few other branches he has, and he believes that the self-employed model won't work because there's not enough money in the system with 1% fees and below for the market centre manager, which I think boss director, which I think is you, and the guys, the associates that are running around. Do fees have to improve so everyone gets a slice of the cake?
No, because the overheads of that particular individual, I mean, his overheads are basically his car or her car and phone. You've got the technology's paid for, Rightmove and Zoopla are paid for, training is paid for. Okay. So you're making so with Keller, you make a very small contribution on a monthly basis that pays for all of that. So it's much cheaper to set up under the Keller banner than it is on your own. Then, you imagine a branch with overheads of £25,000 a month, banking average fees of £2,500. Well, they've got to complete on 10 a month, which means they've got to sell 15, which means they've got to list 30, which means they've got to do 60 valuations a month just to break even. An individual using the same metrics, completing on 2 a month, well, puts them on £5,000 a month, £60,000 a year.
Okay.
Less small costs. So I don't agree with Simon at all. I think that we're not looking. We don't believe that the Keller model has to increase volume in the market, but we also don't believe necessarily, although we have big ambitions in terms of taking market share, it doesn't have to be the biggest estate agency in the country or in each town to break even. Far from it. The unit economics, trust me, they're completely the opposite to the online model, where you had huge marketing expenses, huge overheads, and tiny revenue per customer. With this model, the Keller model, you've got huge revenue per customer for the individual and very, very low overheads. And actually, if you do it right and you kind of get off your backside as an agent and go and find the business, because frankly it's sitting there staring you in the face in your locality right now, then you don't have the obstacle of a huge cost of acquisition like Purplebricks have, eMove had, Yopa have, and like a lot of high street agents have.
Maybe in the next video, Russell, we could talk about how self-employed agents can generate their business, because most decent valuers and listers actually make poor business generators, and we can discuss that in the next one. Thank you.